So we've got to keep that commitment to protecting and preserving our environment. We have to maintain that commitment, and I urge colleagues to defeat this amendment. Now yield back.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Wyoming seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, move to strike the last word.
The gentlewoman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Bishop Amendment strikes environmental mitigation funding that has no place in this bill. This is a Homeland Security bill. We spend this money to protect the homeland and secure our borders. These are some of the most important responsibilities we have as a Congress under our Constitution. But this money won't go to border security. This money will go to pay off federal agencies just so the Border Patrol can access public lands. Our Border Patrol is locked out of huge swaths of public lands along our border unless they fork over tax dollars for environmental mitigation. So we, the Congress, under the auspices of border security, are spending the people's hard-earned money on a slush fund for land managers. Just to name a few examples, agencies have demanded this money to monitor bats, to monitor pronghorn antelope. My state of Wyoming has 3 times more antelope than people. And in one case, to protect the endangered ocelot, which hasn't even been seen in the area for 20 years. This is madness. If you want to protect the species and ecosystems along the border, then secure the border. Rampant border crossings across wilderness do more damage than our border control ever could. We need to eliminate restrictions on the Border Control's access to federal land, not enable them. If you want to stop this extortion of border security dollars, vote for the Bishop Amendment. This puts money towards air and marine interdiction. And if you want environmental mitigation, put it in the Interior bill, where it belongs and where Congress can keep track of where the money goes and where land managers have to justify it. Let our Border Patrol do its job. Vote for the Bishop Amendment. Mr. Chairman, I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman from Wyoming yields back. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Utah. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to.
Mr. Chairman, on that I request the ayes and nays.
Pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18, further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Utah will be postponed. Clerk will read.
Page 9, line 16. Air and Marine Interdiction Operations Maintenance and Procurement. $518,469,000 to remain available until September 30th, 2015. Construction and Facilities Management, $252,567,000 to remain available until September 30th, 2017. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Salaries and Expenses, $5,236,331,000.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from California seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment offered by Ms. Loretta Sanchez of California, page 11, line 21. After the dollar amount, insert reduced by $40 million, increased by $40 million. Page 13, line 24. After the dollar amount, insert reduced by $40 million.
Gentlewoman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, my amendment is simple. Let us combat human trafficking and child exploitation. My amendment would take $40 million from detention and removal operations and transfer those funds to the Office of Investigations to support anti-child exploitation and trafficking initiatives. ICE is one of the key global partners aimed at dismantling criminal infrastructure engaged in child exploitation. These special agents are in many countries throughout the world and the United States, and I have had the opportunity to meet with them overseas where child exploitation is rampant, such as Thailand and Cambodia. That is why I would like to increase funding to combat child exploitation, and I am requesting $40 million be transferred to that. The funds are coming from an account that is $70 million over the President's budget. I didn't even take all of that excess. I'm just asking for $40 million, leaving roughly $30 million for the President's budget in ICE detention and removal operations, with women and girls accounting for over 80% of the people trafficked throughout the world, including within the United States. This issue is something that is very close to my heart, and I have been a vocal advocate to stop and combat sex exploitation trafficking. My district represents the largest Vietnamese population outside of Vietnam in the world, and the fact is that much of this human trafficking victims are originating from Asia. I have a responsibility to the people that I represent to seek out ways to ensure that ICE can combat child exploitation globally, since it impacts us locally. In fact, in Cambodia, brothel owners pay traffickers from anywhere between $350 to $450 for each attractive Vietnamese virgin 16 years or younger. Non-virgins, or those considered less beautiful, are trafficked for about $150 apiece. I'm asking the chairman to join me in this outrage that these things still happen in our modern world, and more often than not, they occur in our own districts here in the United States. The only way to eradicate child exploitation is to stand together to protect every child's right to be free from victimization. We can all work towards eliminating child exploitation by ensuring that we have people who combat this, and by putting this money into this account. We need to give those people on the front line the tools to stop this. I thank the chairman for the time, and I ask him to support my amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Gentlelady yields back the balance of her time. For what purpose the gentleman from Alabama seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I rise in opposition to the gentlelady's amendment. The concern is the amendment seeks to gut the detention operations just as the administration have tried to do, whereas the bill holds the administration's feet to the fire and provides the resources to force them to actually enforce the law. The committee recommends $2.75 billion for ICE detention and removal operations, $71 million above the request to sustain a minimum of 34,000 detention beds. Detention beds are a necessary resource to support robust immigration enforcement. And make no mistake, there is a need for these resources. First, by the administration's own estimates, there are at least 1.9 million removable criminal aliens in the United States. There is a general acknowledgement that an illegal alien population of approximately 11 million. With the expansion of secure communities and ICE prior utilization, there is no doubt they need at least 34,000 beds. Despite the fact that Congress has funded every request that ICE has provided for bed spaces, we got excuses they did not have the resources needed. Now the resources are being provided, and the committee insists that ICE intensify its enforcement efforts and fully utilize these resources. Let me say that countering child exploitation is a critical effort in this bill, where we already have provided increases for ICE and Secret Service activities. The Waltzman-Schultz amendment, which will be brought up shortly, provides an additional 25% for the Child Exploitation Center. We have been working with Congresswoman Waltzman-Schultz on this amendment. We are accepting that 25% increase for the Child Exploitation Center, so I would urge my colleagues to oppose this amendment, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. What purpose the gentleman from North Carolina?
Mr.
Chairman, I move to strike the last words.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I rise in support of our colleague's amendment, the Congresswoman from California, Ms. Sanchez. I think it is a well-designed amendment, both in its positive purpose and in the offsets that she has chosen. She proposes that we increase ICE funding for child exploitation, and that is a worthy cause that we do need to fund more generously than is present in the bill as brought to the floor. Each year, millions of children fall victim to sexual predators. These young victims are left with permanent psychological and physical and emotional scars. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, targets and investigates child pornographers, child sex tourists and facilitators, human smugglers and traffickers of minors, criminal aliens convicted of offenses against minors, and those deported for child exploitation offenses who have returned illegally. ICE is at the forefront of these activities and can make good use of the funding that our colleague proposes. So I commend her for bringing this issue to our attention and for putting this amendment before us. I also have to say that the offsets are particularly well chosen. As I said as we began debate on this bill, this bill contains some ill-advised funding floors, some mandatory spending that is rigid and is wasteful. A certain minimum, an increased minimum of detention beds, for example, and a required floor of funding for the 287G program, a program that is very problematic and that really needs to be transitioned, in my view, to the Secure Communities program that maintains the federal and local roles much more distinctly. So these are offsets that we can afford, and offsets that in fact would improve the bill. And only rarely can one say that about the offsets in these debates. So I commend the gentlelady for her amendment and urge its adoption.
Gentleman yields back. If there is no other speakers, the question is on the amendment offered by the gentlelady from California. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it.
Mr. Chairman, on this I request a recorded vote, please.
Pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18, further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentlelady from California will be postponed. For what purpose does the gentleman from Nebraska rise?
Mr. Chairman, I move to strike the last word.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I wish to enter into a colloquy with Mr. Chairman Aderholt, the Chairman Aderholt from Alabama, the gentleman from Alabama. And first I want to commend his leadership on this transportation or on this appropriations bill concerning the security screenings of children by the Transportation Security Administration. The TSA should absolutely have particular sensitivity in the screening process of children and minimize their distress and discomfort. And I'm very thankful to the gentleman for raising this issue in the manager's amendment and for recognizing this need. But as this process moves forward, I would encourage the chairman to stress the importance of the same sensitivity to the elderly and the infirmed. We have all seen too many images in high-profile news stories about the mistreatment of the elderly and the infirmed, as well as passengers with religious or conscience objections. No good American should be forced to check their modesty at the airport door. Maybe their luggage, but not their modesty. I also appreciate the fact that the report encourages various alternative screening models that would better preserve the civil liberties and privacy of all passengers by moving toward a more risk-based approach, using intelligence more than relying on technology, and encourage the chairman to continue moving TSA along this path. Would the chairman be willing to work with me on these issues for the benefit of America's airline passengers?
Would the gentleman yield?
I'll yield to the gentleman.
Oh, yes. I thank the gentleman for his support of the House report language on sensitivity for child passenger screenings. As a parent of an 8-year-old and a 13-year-old, I understand these concerns. It is certainly reasonable to include other vulnerable individuals like the elderly and the infirmed. I would certainly be happy to work with the gentleman going forward on these matters, and I thank him for bringing this to our attention, the challenges of screening to the floor this evening, and look forward to working with him on this matter.
I thank the gentleman from Alabama again for his leadership on the overall appropriations bill here and for his particular sensitivity to this issue. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentlelady from Florida rise?
Mr. Chairman, I move to strike the last word.
Gentlelady is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, first let me just say how much I appreciate the opportunity to work with the Chairman and appreciate his work, both when we work together in the leadership of the Legislative Branch Appropriations Subcommittee, and also to express appreciation for his commitment to increasing the amount of funds available to pursue child exploitation in this bill, and for your commitment in protecting children. Both of us being parents of 8- and 13-year-olds, I have a particular appreciation for this. And I rise to ask for my colleagues' support for an amendment to protect what we've been talking about here this evening, our most vulnerable constituents, our children. My amendment would fence off $20 million in funds through ICE Homeland Security Investigations Cybercrime Center for the purposes of child exploitation prevention and interdiction. There's no question that our children need our support now more than ever. With the proliferation of the Internet and wireless technology, the spread of child pornography online must be addressed aggressively now. We don't have a moment or an opportunity to waste. The Department of Justice estimates that at any moment, more than 1 million pornographic images of children on the Internet, with an additional 200 images being posted every day. And more than 1/3 of the world's pedophiles involved in organized pornography rings worldwide live in the United States. The Internet allows these images to be disseminated indefinitely, victimizing that child victim again and again with each click of the mouse. Because let's not forget that these aren't just heinous images. They are crime scene photos. Every face in those photographs is the face of a child who needs our support in order to escape a living hell of constant abuse and exploitation. Since the 1970s, before we even had a child pornography statute, ICE, which was then called the U.S. Customs Service, was a leader in the fight to protect our children. That is still true today. As recently as 2009, ICE was responsible for 52% of cases prosecuted for receipt or distribution of child pornography, and 90% of cases prosecuted for child sex tourism. This is in addition to hundreds of arrests every year and thousands of children rescued to date. Their efforts are second to none, and I know they will put these resources to good use. But for every child rescued, hundreds more remain trapped in a current of abuse, the horrors of which none of us can truly imagine. And we need the absolute best personnel going into the fight to rescue these children. That's why it's my hope that some of these funds will be used to employ our wounded warriors, in addition to the experienced agents already fighting these battles. Our armed services have already protected us abroad, so naturally, our veterans are a perfect choice to protect our most precious resources here at home. In fact, retired Army Master Sergeant Rich Robertson is already fighting child exploitation at the ICE field office in Tennessee. In his words, who better to hunt child predators than someone who's already hunted men? I'm enthusiastic about this initiative because I know that the immense skills and motivation of returning servicemen and women possess could be the key to our most successful affront on child exploitation yet. Child predators won't stand a chance. By harnessing the abilities of our wounded warriors, we not only ensure that their skills, dedication, and drive are put to good use back at home, we give them the most dignified thank you of all, a job that truly makes a difference. So let me be clear, with the passage of this amendment, we would be putting predators on notice. Their reign of terror is coming to an end. You can bet on it. I urge all of my colleagues to join me in committing to fight until every American child can live free from terror and exploitation, and support this important amendment which, Mr. Chairman, I have at the desk, which I should have started with. So thank you very much. And I want to also add, Mr. Chairman, that I support my colleague from California's amendment to increase the funds available to ICE for the purpose of fighting child exploitation by reducing the funds available for immigration detention and removal operations, which in this bill is unnecessarily increased above the President's request. And I thank the Chairman and my colleagues' indulgence for doing this backwards.
Gentlelady yields back. I'm sorry.
No, Mr. Chairman, I would be happy to yield to the gentleman.
Suspend. Would anyone suspend? Gentlelady yields back. Would the clerk designate the amendment?
Offered by Ms. Wasserman Schultz of Florida.
Okay, the amendment now is formally before us. The gentleman from Alabama. For what purpose?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we would gladly accept the gentlelady's amendment.
Thank you.
Further discussion? If not, the question is on the amendment offered by the gentlelady from Florida. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the gentlelady from California rises.
I rise to strike the last word and support the amendment offered by my colleague from Florida.
The gentlelady is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, each year millions of children fall victim to sexual predators. These young victims are left with permanent psychological, physical, and emotional scars. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, also known as ICE, targets and investigates child pornographers, child sex tourists and facilitators, human smugglers and traffickers of minors, criminal aliens convicted of offenses against minors, and those deported for child exploitation offenses who have returned illegally. The Child Exploitation Center is at the forefront of these investigations. Unfortunately, funding for ICE's Child Exploitation Center has decreased over the past 2 years from $16.7 million in 2011 to a proposed $14.7 million in 2013. This amendment bolsters funds for this center by a modest amount, bringing total funding to $20 million, restoring the budget cuts and providing a small additional amount to make additional headway on ending these heinous crimes. I appreciate the gentlelady bringing this issue to our attention, and I support the adoption of this amendment. These dollars will be well spent safeguarding our children worldwide. And I appreciate the chairman accepting the amendment.
Gentlelady yields back. Now we'll try it again. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentlelady from Florida. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the motion is agreed to. The clerk.
Strike the last word.
Gentleman from Alabama.
I yield to the gentleman from Texas to talk about an important immigration enforcement program.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank the chair for yielding to me. I'd like to bring to the attention of my colleagues a recent change made by the Department of Justice to the State Criminal Aliens Assistance Program, also known as SCAP. While this program is under the jurisdiction of the DOJ, it is a consequence of the federal government's failure to secure our borders, which is why I bring it up during this debate. SCAP reimburses states and counties for part of the cost of incarcerating undocumented criminal aliens. I want to emphasize that this program does not come close to fully reimbursing our states or our counties for the full cost of incarcerating these individuals. Recently, DOJ announced that they will offer no reimbursement for what they consider to be unknown documented aliens. Now, being an unknown documented alien simply means that DHS has no information on that individual, a designation that would apply to a majority of the illegal aliens in this country. So, for example, when the sheriff in my home county picks up someone for aggravated assault and in accordance with the Secure Communities checks the federal database, if this person has never been processed by DHS, they will be considered unknown documented aliens and therefore ineligible to be reimbursed for any part of the cost of the incarceration under this new rule. I'd like to point out that this change disproportionately affects counties over states, both of which are eligible for reimbursement under SCAP. The county jail is the first point of contact with the criminal justice system for many illegal aliens, so there's no background on the individual. These inmates are also typically held for a shorter period of time, making it difficult for them to be processed by the federal government before they are transferred to a state institution after they are convicted. This change has much less impact on the states, as they typically hold inmates for a much longer period of time, giving them plenty of opportunity to be processed by ICE agents who typically are located at the state prisons, a luxury the counties do not have. If this change were implemented in 2010, Williamson County, my home county, would have received $90,000 less than their full payment for that year, which is only about $150,000, which is only a small portion of the overall cost of incarcerating these individuals. That's a lot of money for a moderately sized county in Texas. The impact on larger counties would be much greater. I do not think that our counties should be punished for the federal government's failure to secure our borders and process undocumented aliens in an acceptable time frame. Now, I'd like to commend Chairman Aderholt for prioritizing the frontline operations by funding the Border Patrol agents and CBP officers at the highest levels in history. I would like to propose to the Chairman that we work together with these agencies to find a solution to this problem. In the meantime, I'll be writing a letter to the Justice Department, along with my friend and colleague, Congressman Honda from California, to ask the Department to delay this change while we work to find a solution that will not punish our counties for the failures of the federal government.
Mr. Chairman, I reclaim my time. I share the concerns that has been raised by the gentleman from Texas this evening. The Department of Homeland Security needs the support of states and counties in border security, and SCALP is an important tool to facilitate that support. I look forward to working with the gentleman to ensure the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Justice find the right solution. I know that my other distinguished colleagues on the Appropriations Committee from the state of Virginia has views on this program within the jurisdiction. Yeah. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.
Yes,
for what purpose the gentleman for Virginia
the last
raised
word.
On this issue? The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Chairman of the Commerce, Justice, Science Subcommittee, I'm very sympathetic to the concerns raised by the gentleman from Texas. I understand that last year DOJ notified prospective FY11 SCAP applicants of this coming change and encouraged jurisdictions to work closely with DHS to increase inmate alien status verification. I did not hear any concerns with this new requirement during the consideration of CGS appropriation for FY12 or 13, but I'd be pleased to work with you as well as the Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security to help ensure that the SCAP reimbursement methodology is equitable for all types of jurisdictions and maximizes the verification of status for individual aliens. And with that, I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose is the gentleman from California then raised?
I'd like to strike the last word.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a member of the Subcommittee on Commerce, Justice, and Science, I'd like to thank our Chairman, Mr. Wolf, Chairman Aderholt, and my good friend, Judge Carter, for speaking on this important issue today. The State Criminal Alien Assistance Program, SCAP, is a bipartisan issue and has a bipartisan effort to address it. California jurisdictions already received 10% of the total cost of reimbursement because of the drastic cuts this program has received over the past few years. The recent funding solicitation change that would stop reimbursements for all unknowns by the Department of Justice has the potential to worsen the situation. It will devastate county budgets at a time when they are already feeling the pinch of state and federal cuts. As a former member of the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors, I know firsthand how terrible the impact of this change will be on our counties. It is undisputed that the vast majority of the undocumented immigrants residing in the U.S. are unknown to the federal government. Therefore, the unilateral decision by DOJ to only provide SCAP funds for those criminal undocumented that are known to the federal government is deeply troubling and is a backdoor attempt to kill the SCAP program. As my friend Judge Carter has noted, counties in particular will be hit by this change the hardest because of the inability for ICE agents to be present at all times to process unknowns in county jails. In state jails, prisoners are held longer and ICE agents are on staff, so there's ample time and opportunity for unknowns to be processed in the system. If the department would like to make this change, it has to provide a clear, timely, and accessible methods to the counties to process unknowns properly, something which they clearly do not have now. Now, I look forward to working with the appropriate agencies and subcommittees to ensure that we can find an equitable solution to the solution. I appreciate both Chairman Wolf and Chairman Elderholt's time on this. Until then, however, I will be writing a letter with my good friend Judge Carter to the Department of Justice to delay this change until the appropriate time. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Finally, the gentleman from Michigan. For what purpose does he rise?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
Clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment offered by Mr. Clark of Michigan, page 11, line 21, after the dollar amount, insert reduced by $10 million. Page 12, line 7, after the dollar amount, insert reduced by $10 million. Page 37, line 18, after the dollar amount, insert increased by $10 million.
Gentleman from Michigan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This amendment would add $10 million to FEMA's state and local grant programs. This will be an additional $10 million that our state governments and our local units of government could have available to them to better protect their citizens in the case of an emergency and also to respond more effectively to such a disaster. This money can go to high-risk urban areas such as Metro Detroit that really need the resources. It can also go to better protect and secure our ports, which would also benefit regions like metropolitan Detroit. And again, the reason why I come to this Congress, to this budget, and ask for these additional resources is because in the past, this Congress failed to properly oversee the housing market, which resulted in a crisis that dramatically reduced property values all around this country and most tragically reduced the revenues available to state and localities to fund these important services. That's why I'm asking this Congress, this House, to amend this budget to provide an additional $10 million to our states and local units of government so they can better protect our citizens in case of an emergency. Thank you so much. I look for your support, and I yield back my time.
Gentleman yields back. For purpose, the gentleman from Texas rise then.
Mr. Chairman, I rise in opposition to the gentleman's amendment.
Is recognized for 5 minutes.
This amendment seeks to cut critical funds for enforcing our nation's immigration laws. Those laws are important to be enforced. I urge my colleagues to oppose this amendment, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from North Carolina.
Strike the last words.
Recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I rise in support of the gentleman's amendment. It adds $10 million to FEMA, state, and local grants, and as we've said many times this evening, these are grant programs that have been cut severely in recent years, and while this year's bill improves on that, we certainly can use more funding in this area, and the gentleman has figured out a way to do it. He's come up with an offset that actually improves the bill. The proposed offset is to the troubled 287G program, reduces it by $10 million, moving it closer to the administration's request. Mr. Chairman, 3 Inspector General audits have found serious flaws with this program, and ICE has had to terminate some 287G agreements because of racial profiling and other abuses. We have no business funding this program at levels above the request, much less having a mandatory funding level, which is included in this bill. So the gentleman has come up with an amendment that adds needed grant funding and improves the bill in its offset, and I urge its adoption, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Michigan. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. The opinion of the chair, the noes have it. And the amendment
Mr. Chair, I ask for a recorded vote.
Pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18, further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Michigan will be postponed. For all purposes, the gentleman from Colorado rise.
Mr. Chair, I have an amendment at the desk.
Clerk will report.
Amendment offered by Mr. Polis of Colorado, page 11, line 21. After the dollar amount, insert reduced by $501,331,000. Page 99, line 17. After the dollar amount, insert increase by $501,331,000.
Gentleman from Colorado is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My amendment would bring down funding for ICE to fiscal year 2008 levels. And I know that this is a time when it's critical to balance our budget, to cut government spending. And here is an example of a line item where we simply can't afford to continue to reward failure. This bill is a great place to start in making sure that we have a sound policy for our country. We can't afford to continue wasting billions of dollars of hard-earned taxpayer money to fund an agency that, frankly, isn't producing results. This bill proposed to appropriate billions of dollars to ICE to enforce our broken immigration laws. That means they spend this money to continue deporting hardworking immigrants, separating families, kicking out students who have lived in this country their entire lives, all at taxpayer expense. How much does this cost the American taxpayer? ICE itself has said that each deportation costs $12,500. Outside estimates actually put the number higher, around $23,000. In fact, it costs an average of $112 a night just to detain illegal immigrants. That's right. This country is putting illegal immigrants up effectively at hotels. We might as well put them up at a bargain hotel. Let's find a $49 room rather than spending $112 a night to feed and house illegal immigrants every night. My amendment will not end that practice, but it'll take it back to 2008 levels. We simply can't deport our way out of our current immigration problems. One study estimates it would cost $285 billion to deport all the illegal immigrants in the country, not to mention the devastating impact on the economy that would have. We need to replace our broken immigration system with one that works, and simply throwing good money after bad at a failed agency like ICE, which has not stopped illegal immigration, is simply a recipe for continued disaster. In addition, ICE is responsible for shutting down websites. And frequently they have taken down legitimate websites without any due process of the law. The story of the music blog To Jazz should be a warning to all of us that we need to take a closer look at these efforts. This site was seized by ICE for over a year without any explanation or due process. And when the government finally returned control of the site to its owners, they couldn't even explain why they took control of the Internet site. Now, imagine if the government had seized a printing press or a magazine or a newspaper. We would be outraged on the left, on the right. Why is this any different? Seizing a website without any due process of the law is contrary to the principles enshrined in our Constitution, is un-American, and violates our freedom of speech. Now, make no mistake, even if my amendment passes, the bill would still appropriate far too much for a failed agency. It still would appropriate billions of dollars. And I would still oppose that appropriation. But at least let's return that appropriation to 2008 levels, to stop putting illegal immigrants up at hotels, to stop closing down websites that are free press, to stop spending enormous amounts of taxpayer money not solving our immigration problem. It's more important than ever that we balance our budget and end the deficit. We can start that by reducing wasteful government spending instead of increasing wasteful government spending. ICE has failed to stop illegal immigration. Let's not reward failure. Let's not reward failure. ICE has shut down websites without any due process. Let's not reward failure. Now, obviously, there are members on both sides of the aisle, myself included, that want to address our broken immigration system, and we should have a country that has zero illegal immigrants, not 10 million, not 12 million, not 15 million. Frankly, the less ICE does, the more likely we can eliminate illegal immigration in this country, because all they do is contribute to it. And my bill will at least reduce their funding to 2008 levels. I think it's a common sense amendment. Anybody who opposes this amendment is effectively rewarding the continued failure of one of the most poorly performing government agencies. I urge my colleagues to vote for my amendment, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Texas, for what purpose?
Mr. Chairman, I rise in opposition to the gentleman's amendment.
Recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, this amendment slashes immigration enforcement and would result in laying off many ICE agents and potentially releasing dangerous criminal aliens from custody. Now, the gentleman's argument is interesting. His argument seems to be that if you fire the enforcing officers and legalize the criminals, you're not going to have a problem. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, but that's not the way it operates. When you break the law, you have to face the consequences, and we need the enforcement officers to go out and assist us enforcing the law. Whether or not the immigration law is broken, I happen to agree that it is broken. We might not necessarily agree on how to fix it, but I agree that it is broken, because I agree we have porous borders. But I believe the ICE people are doing the very best that they can. And quite honestly, I'm shocked that the solution to a criminal problem is fire the law enforcement officers. And that's not good policy under anybody's thinking. And supposedly those who object are not thinking straight. Well, I would argue the contrary is the case in this particular argument. I urge my colleagues to oppose this amendment.
The gentleman from Texas yields back. The gentleman from North Carolina.
Mr. Chairman, I move to strike the last words.
It's recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I rise in opposition to this amendment. It cuts ICE salaries and expenses by over $500 million and puts all of that spending in the spending reduction account. There's some ironies in this amendment. It would actually hinder our efforts to move away from the flawed 287G program. It would hinder nationwide deployment of the much more conceptually sound Secure Communities effort. It would greatly reduce funding for alternatives to detention, where we very much need to go. It would lay off thousands of ICE personnel. And what do these personnel do? We've hired them to fight the drug trade, to fight human trafficking, to fight violence along the southwest border. I urge defeat of this amendment and yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Colorado. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. Opinion of the chair, the noes have it. And the amendment is not agreed to. For what purpose the gentleman from California rise?
Mr. Chairman, I move to strike the last word.
The gentleman's recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I would like to thank the Chairman, Ranking Member, and members of the subcommittee for recognizing the importance of supporting a path for legal immigrants to become citizens. The United States has a special interest in and draws unique benefits from extending citizenship to immigrants who have met legal residence, character, English, and civics knowledge requirements. I appreciate the Chairman's willingness to encourage U.S. citizenship and immigration services to keep the naturalization application fee affordable so that we don't prevent legal immigrants from pursuing citizenship, prevent them from pursuing citizenship simply because they cannot afford it. But I am concerned that the way the bill approaches funding for immigrant integration grant programs could undermine this effort to keep fees affordable. Integrating immigrants strengthens their commitment to the United States and makes us a stronger and more prosperous democracy. Integration grants have proven to be cost-effective means of encouraging immigrants to integrate. It is unfair that the costs and limited availability of citizenship education and legal assistance is the reason that many of the more than 8 million legal and tax-paying permanent residents are unable to naturalize despite their eligibility to do so. This bill only allows funding of immigrant integration programs through fees collected, departing from past practice of providing discretionary funding to support the program. This approach will require fee hikes that push naturalization further out of the reach of people who already struggle to pay costs of up to thousands of dollars for the current application, attorney's fees, required document collection and preparation for the naturalization examination, defeating the subcommittee's own stated goal of keeping fees affordable. The future viability of the Immigrant Integration Grant Program may depend on Congress's willingness to reinstate discretionary funding to support it, as the Senate has proposed to do so in its version of the bill. I support the Senate's approach to provide direct discretionary funding in the amount of $5 million, regardless of the funds deposited into the immigration examination fee account. And I hope that as we move forward to conference with the Senate, we can adopt that approach. It is in this country's interest to support our future U.S. citizens, and so it is in all of our interest to get support for immigrant integration grants, doing it right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Clerk will read.
Page 15, line 1, automation organizations, $232,006,000 to remain available until September 30th, 2015. Construction, $5,450,000 to remain available until September 30th, 2016. Transportation Security Administration Aviation Security, $5,041,230,000 to remain available until September 30th, 2014.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Georgia rise?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will report.
Amendment offered by Mr. Brown of Georgia. Page 15, line 23, after the dollar amount, insert reduced to $0. Page 99, line 17, after the dollar amount, insert increased by $5,041,230,000.
Gentleman from Georgia is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My amendment would completely eliminate funding for the Transportation Security Administration, TSA, and transfer that money into the deficit reduction account, saving taxpayers more than $5 billion. The fact of the matter is very simple. TSA is not doing the job that it was created to do 10 years ago. Originally, Congress intended for TSA to be an efficient, cutting-edge, intelligence-based agency responsible for protecting our airports and keeping passengers safe and secure. Today, it has grown into one of the largest bureaucracies, bigger than the Departments of Labor, Energy, Education, Housing and Urban Development, and State, all combined, larger than all of those. They've had a 400% increase in staff over the past 10 years. A good portion of that has gone to headquarters employees making 6 figures on the average. What's worse is that American passengers aren't getting a good return on the nearly $60 billion that they've invested and spent on TSA. Reports indicate that more than 25,000 security breaches have occurred at U.S. airports since 2001. Plus, we have evidence today that terrorists that are on the no-fly list have been still able to fly successfully aboard U.S. aircraft. On top of this startling information, we've all seen the recent news headlines detailing the lack of professionalism, unreliable training, and even alleged corruption in the TSA ranks. Just about the only thing that TSA is good at is using its extensive power to violate American travelers' civil liberties. The stories range from embarrassing near-strip searches all the way to agents being hired without background checks. This is all evidence that TSA has veered dangerously off course from what it was intended to do. I've repeatedly asked that we use our resources to focus on intelligence and technologies that could be more effective when it comes to catching terrorists, instead of patting down grandmas and children. I've demanded Administrator Pistol's resignation, and I've called for the privatization of TSA, along with some of my other colleagues here in the House. But we've still yet to see the necessary changes made to the TSA personnel or procedures that will ensure the safety and security of our airports and passengers. Mr. Chairman,
This amendment to zero out funding for TSA forces Congress and the Department of Homeland Security to start all over again, start from scratch on a better, more effective, and more progressive system for protecting our airlines without violating the person and liberties of our citizens. I urge my colleagues to support my amendment, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Texas, for what purpose?
I rise in opposition to the gentleman's amendment.
Gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, again, it's never been a solution for failed enforcement to fire all the police officers and get rid of them and then hope it'll all work out. Whether or not, without speaking to the criticism of the gentleman, with the terrorist threat is still real. This is an agency that has that duty and responsibility. To zero out them and lay them all off would not be productive in stopping criminal activity in the United States. For that reason, I oppose the gentleman's amendment.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from North Carolina.
Move to strike the last words.
Gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I too rise to oppose this amendment. Aviation continues to be the main focus for terrorists seeking to do us harm. I would think we all realize that. This amendment would prohibit all the screening, all the scanning, all the protective measures that we have undertaken for our protection. It's indiscriminate, it's excessive, and it should be rejected. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Georgia. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. No. The opinion of the chair, the noes have it. And the amendment is not agreed to. Clerk will read. Who? Clerk will suspend. Who? Who seeks recognition? All right, then the clerk will read.
Page 19, line 1. Surface Transportation Security, $126,418,000 to remain available until September 30th, 2014.
Okay, for what purpose now? Is the gentleman from
Mr.
Georgia?
Chairman,
from Florida, right?
I move to strike the last word.
Gentleman is recognized to strike the last word for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman and my colleagues. I had intended to offer an amendment at this stage in the proceedings, but I'm not going to do it at this time because I have received some cooperation from the Appropriations Committee, and I want to thank Chairman Aderholt and the staff and others for including in this DHS bill some reforms of TSA that are long overdue. The gentleman from Georgia just mentioned that this is an agency that's out of control, and it is important that we as members of Congress try to get agencies that spin out of control under control, and that's, I think, what we're attempting to do here. And let me say about this process, this is an incredible process, and it's an open process, so I thank our side of the aisle for allowing members to have these opportunities. We were closed off many opportunities in the past to make these changes that are necessary in reforming agencies like TSA. Now let me say what they have done in this bill that is important, and one reason I'm going to support the bill, they need to go a lot further than they've gone, but one reason I'm going to support the bill is they have taken some opportunity to cut some of the administrative overhead. Listen to this. TSA has grown to 65,000 employees. Of that, there are 14,000 administrative personnel, 4,000 in Washington, D.C., not very far from us, 4,000 making on average, and they've got the statistics right here. The staff will give them to you, $104,000 on average per administrative person, 10,000 administrative people out in the field. So this bill does reduce, I believe it's by about $60 million, some of that administrative overhead. That's only the beginning, but at least it's a beginning. This bill also cuts some programs that have failed, like behavior detection program. It reduces some of the spending there. Another program that doesn't work that we need to cut funds on, it does redirect some money, and I must congratulate the committee for restoring the flight deck officer cuts. The Obama administration proposed disarming our pilots. 50% of that program, volunteer pilots who pay their own way to learn how to arm themselves to protect their aircraft, themselves, and their passengers. One of the most cost-effective programs we have. I guess that would be the way that the Obama administration goes. You want to, keep the bureaucracy, but do away with cost-effective programs. But thank you, committee members and staff, for restoring that. So almost every proposal we made from the Transportation Committee for cuts and reassignment of funds have been made here. Not to the degree I would like, but at least I will say it's a beginning. Finally, let me say that we've got to do something to further get this agency under control. Last week we learned a little bit about a meltdown in security at one of my Florida airports, Fort Myers. We got some information because we get tips all the time. Everybody tells us what's going on at TSA, except the TSA bureaucrats that are trying to protect their positions. You know, they waited till Friday afternoon and released a one-paragraph statement poo-pooing what had taken place at Fort Myers and keeping our committee in the dark, trying to keep it from the public and the press and from Congress. I took the opportunity to let the press and the public know what I knew, which wasn't much. And thank goodness for a free and open press, because they went after TSA. And we found out Monday morning, along with everyone else, what they had done in not providing accurate information, not telling us it was one of the most serious of meltdowns of TS personnel. And we've had them before in Newark and Charlotte. We've had them in New York City and others. So this is an agency that's out of control. We need to cut the bureaucracy as they've begun to do here. We need to realign where the money needs to be spent. I have no problem with spending money for security and making certain that terrorists don't take advantage of our most vulnerable Achilles heel in the transportation network. And for the American public, that's aviation. We've seen them go after it again and again. But you need to spend the money where it makes the most sense and does the most as far as true aviation security. Expensive aviation theater security is not the way we're going to go. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. For what purpose? For what purpose the gentleman from Tennessee rise?
Mr. Chairman, I move to strike the last word.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I had intended to, or had considered offering an amendment again this year concerning the Federal Air Marshal Program. I offered an amendment last year to simply keep the Federal Air Marshals at level funding. They were approaching almost $1 billion spending each year, and they'd been given 10 straight years of increases. And this program, though, was called to my attention by an article that I read in USA Today in which they said that more air marshals had been arrested than had been arrests made by air marshals, and that they were spending approximately $200 million per arrest each year. And I became convinced, because of that report and other reports, that this really was probably one of the most useless, needless agencies in the entire federal government. But I offered the amendment knowing that it's almost impossible to cut a law enforcement agency or an agency that can claim it's doing something toward aviation safety and security. So my amendment received a lot more votes than I expected, but did not pass. But at that time, Chairman Rogers and Ranking Member Price assured me that they would look a little more closely at this program, and I feel that they have done so. And so I rise to commend them and tell them that I appreciate the fact that they have added an 86 or taken an $86.5 million cut to this program. That is frankly more than I had planned to cut in the amendment that I offered last year. I want to say that I'm a really strong supporter of law enforcement, always have been and always will be. But when you take scarce law enforcement dollars that are especially needed for our local law enforcement people who are the ones out there fighting the real crime that needs to be fought, then you're depriving the agencies that really need it when you give it to an agency like the Federal Air Marshal Program that is doing almost no good whatsoever for this country. Almost every member in this Congress flies a couple of times each week. Thus, we're doing the same thing that these Federal Air Marshals are doing. It's one of the softest, easiest jobs in the Federal Government just to fly back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And so I want to say that I appreciate the fact that that Chairman Rogers has agreed to, and Ranking Member Price has agreed to this $86.5 million cut. I wish it was a lot more, and I still think this agency needs to be eliminated. But I do appreciate the progress that's being made thus far, and so I will not offer an amendment this year because I think at least we've started in the right direction on this program, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. For what purpose the gentleman from Minnesota rises?
Mr. Chairman, I ask for unanimous consent to consider my amendment at this point in the reading.